T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Power clear.
Hello and welcome to the Bullpen. I am James Roy and with me is Tom Chavarria. It's been a week. It's been 2 weeks. We took a week off, but now we're here. So, Tom, how are you doing today?
I am doing better now. I was doing some maintenance on my Jeep today, and let me tell you, for
You were
vehicle
strutting
owners,
around. You were strutting around.
I
That's
was
what you were
not.
doing.
I was not. I was struggling. That's what I was doing.
What's that advice you gave your kid when he texted you about it?
Make enough money so someone else can maintain your vehicle. It was tough. My Jeep is 11 years old. These struts were factory. They had 200,000 miles on them. So they were in there good, and it was an all-day thing. It was a warm one today, so I'm just glad to be talking sports. The Team USA men's soccer team's over here trying to make me real proud right now, so everything is better now.
I made a prediction before that game started. I said that USA will win 2-1. And as someone who is entirely uninformed on soccer and only watches MLS, I'll tell you that match started and I was like, oh, wow, this is going a little faster than I'm used to. Especially only watching the Dynamo, who only play defense and don't really do a lot of scoring. I'm just like, wow, they've taken a lot of shots on goal at this point in the match.
When I tell you, like, MLS soccer to, men's national team soccer is just like, Pee Wee football to NFL, it's exactly that. Like, you've got so many stars, you've got so much talent. And while the MLS is coming, they're growing, they're getting there. There's just a chasm between the two.
No, yeah, 100%. Oh, look, I just turned the chat on. So sorry, guys. I just saw that there's stuff going on in the chat over on Instagram. Dr. Do is with us. Thanks for being with us today, Dr. Do. And we've got a couple of people saying hi in the chat. Hello. Please, if you have any questions or you want to talk about anything, this is I like to call this. I don't want to say the wasteland, but this is like, oh, don't ask that. I don't even want to say what you just asked. That's wild. Anyway, it's that point in the off season where it's kind of like, what do we talk about? And I'm not going to try and make up what we talk about, but we do have some stuff to talk about since last time that we talked. So we'll get right into it. Steven Nelson, there's been speculation. Is he going to play again? Where is he going to play? Who's he going to play for? It's probably not going to be the Texans. And we talked about the comments that he made about Coach Milk Dud Mick Ryans. I don't know why I added a Mick in there, but anyways, he has retired. He's decided, and I respect it, man. I told you I respected the way that Steven Nelson went about that simply because he didn't just throw stones at D'Amico Ryans and then sit on his couch and record a podcast about it. He went out and like got into the community and did what he, for some reason, believed that D'Amico was not doing for Houston during the storm recovery. So I don't know. I think he's got to do what's best for him. What are your thoughts in general on Steven Nelson retiring in that whole situation?
I'm really just confused. I feel like if you were going to hang it up, which I guess that was his intent, because there were teams, including the Texans, that made him offers to try to get him to come back and play football. And I just don't understand the logic behind casting stones at that point. You know what I mean? It to me, it felt kind of weird. I don't understand, what he hoped to accomplish. But he had a great career. So hopefully he doesn't run off and start a podcast and start talking trash. Hopefully just, rides off into the sunset and he's a Texan legend in the next softball game.
I don't have my Bluetooth hooked up, but I'm going to throw out there enemy spotted. We got a couple of Cowboys fans in the chat. And sorry to burst your bubble, Tom, but Steven Nelson has a podcast. He started it. I want to say he started it sometime in the middle of the season. It's called The Corner Suite. It may have been just after the season. I don't remember when that happened, but it did. And I've subscribed to it. I've told myself I'm going to give it a listen. Personally, I have run out. I used to have a lot of time to listen to podcasts, and now right now I don't. But at some point, I'm going to give it a shot. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any problem. I think that he's probably looking for a multi-year deal. He's probably looking for more than what most teams are offering him right now. And so if that deal comes up, I could imagine that my phone is ringing right through, isn't it? I can imagine that he would probably consider an offer if it was more closer to what he wants, but I don't think he's going to get that at this stage. Maybe the Cowboys will throw him an offer since they need talent over there in Dallas, but
they don't need it at corner.
They don't need it at corner, but
I think they're so stacked at corner. So as much as we could, cast stones at Cowboy fans and Cowboys and, back and forth with the two Texas teams, I have a lot of respect for what they got going on over there. I can't wait till, Micah Parsons is a Texan. So it'll be, the throwback will be fantastic. So it's going to
be great. I mean, so Micah Parsons either goes to Houston or he goes to Philly. I mean, I don't know which one would hurt you guys more. The Cowboys fans in the chat. Nice to know you guys are thinking about us. The Texans on 3 podcast is in the chat on Instagram. Thanks for stopping by and listening to the Bullpen, because I know that you probably have a lot of content you're producing yourselves. Thanks for listening to us talk. Parsons is going. Let's start the Mike Parsons of the Eagles train. The other significant thing that's going on in the Texans space this offseason is Bill O'Brien is talking to people in front of cameras, which most Texans fans probably don't like to hear. But someone, I guess, I felt like he had probably already hashed this out, but maybe he hadn't. Someone finally asked him about the whole Texans GM thing. The only thing I had heard between now and then was him on the Patriots documentary saying something like, I basically purposefully tanked the Texans because I heard that I might be Bill Belichick's successor. That's my Texans conspiracy theory for you. Just a little Texans conspiracy chat. But he basically said, I never wanted to be GM, and that was an awful idea, and I didn't like it. What do you make of that? Do you have any thoughts on that, or is it just so far in the past for you?
So I actually am going to go the other way. I got a lot of respect for Bill O'Brien, willing to literally open his, put a bullseye on his chest again by saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Well, people are going to say, yeah, you're right. And then it's going to rehash the whole thing, right? I think B.O.B. probably could have just, stayed away from it, not talked about it. That was then, this is now, Patriots, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But for him to own it and say, you know what, that was probably the biggest mistake I could have made. I think that takes a lot of class. I think it takes a lot of character, he didn't come off as a guy that, he had that famous, go at with a fan, right? Going into the tunnel. So he never seemed like a guy to me that was just going to let it lie. He was always going to fire back when he thought he was wrong. So he could have took the other, no, I absolutely was going to be a GM, and, the Texans didn't support me, or, they didn't set me up for success or whatever. But, for him to say, hey, that was my L and hold it, I'm cool with that.
I think I'm fine with it. It's just like hindsight's 2020. I think that I believe it was Landry Locker that said it. I could be wrong, but what it comes across as, and what I'm probably going to take it as, is that it seemed like Bill O'Brien was fine making personnel decisions when he didn't have the GM title, because there was no accountability if it went wrong and there was someone to take the fall. But what he didn't like about being GM is that when you make personnel decisions as a GM, you are the guy who takes the fall when those don't go well. And he made a couple of personnel decisions that didn't go very well. And so, I mean, I'm thankful that we have Laramie Tunsil, but that trade is that something I would have done if I was running the Texans at the time? Probably not. It really handicapped the Texans severely going into the time after Bill O'Brien. It kind of feels like John Calipari, where he goes to Memphis. He just absolutely wrecks that program. He gets them close to the title and then leaves. I know I'm branching off into college basketball right now, but and then gets hit with sanctions and jumps to UK, and then takes his prospects with him and lets Memphis take the fall and all of that. So that's just kind of what it felt like, was like, here, I'll make all these moves and then I'm gone. And now the Texans were left to pick up the pieces. So I don't really care what he says. I'm still not going to have a great view on him. Recently I've run into a lot of people with this like viewpoint of like, Bill O'Brien's like a great coach. He's probably the best coach in Texans history. And it's just like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I know, regardless of how good he was on the field and what he was able to produce, like with the talent that he had, I'm not going to sit here and not look at the whole product. So, I mean, when I look at the whole of what Bill O'Brien was when he was on the Texans, it's just not good. So I don't have a lot of good things to say about that. I wouldn't say that he shouldn't have traded DeAndre Hopkins. I just didn't like the return on that. We got a comment on Instagram about that. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins wanted out. He was going to go. Do you feel the same about that?
I feel like that was the one trade he got wrong. I definitely don't have an issue with the Laramie Tunsil move if we're going to go back in time. When you think about what he was trying to do and what Texans teams in the past had failed to do was protect the quarterback. You talk very passionately about, how if I'm struggling with the name quarterback that we had on the show.
Matt Schaub.
If Matt Schaub hadn't got his foot broke, that team's win a Super Bowl. So he saw that as, hey, I need a left tackle, and I just don't need anyone. I need the best one, and try to do that. You know what I mean? I think that was a big thing in New England. They had to have the left tackle and the quarterback, and that was his thing. I was going to sell out for a left tackle. I'm cool with it. The D-Hop thing for me is one of those trades that I always had a different view than the group. Yes, he failed on the return 100%. When you think about what D-Hop was at the time, but what I think most people fail to realize is that he wanted to do right by D-Hop. D-Hop wanted to go there. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, screw that. The only thing you need to care about is the Texans. You don't need to care about what D-Hop wants. And I think when you listen to where he talked about, hey, I've made some bad relationships and, I didn't like how, that part of the GM thing went. I really feel like that's what, he was trying to make amends and go, look, D-Hop, where you want to go, I'll make it work. And they did. And the trade was bad. And I think Arizona knew that, this was going down. And if he'd offered him to anybody else, he'd have got more. But it was trying to appease D-Hop to set the culture, So I can't fault him for trying. I think a lot of people just see as like, oh, look at this trash he got. And that's why, Bill O'Brien is received the way he's received.
I feel for you on that. I mean, and to the point of the Tunsil trade, I think that if Deshaun Watson doesn't do what he does and he's still in Houston, that trade makes a lot more sense to me. And I think that in the long term, that trade paid off for the current Texans because of where, enduring that it was always going to suck for a time there if you didn't have a quarterback. And so the reason that trade to me maybe isn't as good as it's in the end. Ends justify the means, right? So at the end of the day, the Texans got Laramie Tunsil. It cost them 2 years of football, realistically, because of Deshaun Watson. I think the Deshaun Watson situation is what makes that trade look really bad in the short term, because it was August of 2019 they made that trade, and then the Texans made that run with Deshaun Watson. And so coming off of the 2019 campaign, you didn't really expect the Texans to need high draft capital. They were a team that had just pushed into the divisional round, should have pushed past the divisional round, not before entering it, but just based off of how that game went early on. And so it was the fall of Deshaun Watson that for a time there made the Laramie Tunsil trade look really bad in hindsight. But speaking of the Texans now that we're talking about the Texans right now, you're looking at the screen. Did something happen in the game? Is it still 1-1?
It is the death. There's a free kick right now in front of the USA goal. And I mean, it's right outside the box. It's a very dangerous spot. It's probably the last play of the game. Okay. Vinny Jr. Just got fouled, and now, they're trying to set up a wall, and yeah.
Ooh. Hopefully they do better than Brazil did trying to prevent Pulisic from getting it in. Dr. Du, you're on Instagram. We're streaming externally. I don't believe that you can join the chat. Anyway, the Texans right now look really good. I mean, Texans fans, the Texans themselves, between CJ Stroud, Nick Caserio on his tour of basically changing his whole persona with the media, it feels like, at least in some ways, the Texans have been doing a lot of talk. It's been from all levels, from the top to the bottom, everywhere. You hear that, everyone that comes up, when I'm wearing Texans gear, everyone that comes up to me is like, wow, you guys would be pretty good this year. It's coming from every area, but there's recently been this train of thought that's been propagating throughout social media that maybe the Texans need to hold up on that talk and maybe slow it down. Don't get ahead of yourselves. You got to be able to back up that talk. What are your thoughts on that attitude of the Texans? Sure, you got a lot of time. You've built a roster that looks really good, and you did really good last year, but maybe slow down until you actually show it again.
I mean, look, you're always going to have both sides of that coin, right? You're going to have people that are going to say, well, on paper, they look good. They should talk, this is where if you feel confident in your team and the group that you've assembled and what you're capable of do, this is where you can say, hey, we did win our division. We did win a playoff game, that sort of thing. Now, there's also always going to be that other side that's going to be like, no, we want you to be humble and we don't want you to talk about it. We just want you to just be. And I think in this new age, in this new era where you can't ever be because somebody's got a microphone or a camera or something, or they want you to get in front of a microphone or a camera. I mean, everybody wants to talk about CJ Stroud and how much he's talking, but people are seeking him out. It's not like he's got a podcast where he's in a closet going, no, I'm talking this trash. People are seeking him out. They're asking questions. They want to know. They want to know how he feels. They want to know where the Texans are going to go. They see this young star and they want to capitalize on, his availability right now, where in 2 years, CJ might be like, look, man, we had a deep playoff run. I'm not trying to do all this, go talk to Caleb Williams or go talk to Marvin Harrison Jr. You know what I mean? Go talk to them. Like this is probably a spot where you probably get CJ Stroud and he's vocal. Now, I think it's interesting that no one's talking about everybody clapping back. Nobody's talking about all these other podcasts where people are chirping too. It's CJ's talking too much. And
that started, I heard that the rumblings of that, he's been making his media tour, right? There's no denying that. He's been in front of a camera mostly with Micah Parsons pretty much since the season ended. And so that with that, there's a lot of people, I don't know, how do you put it? Dr. Barrett on X, I think, put it best. CJ Stroud is a likable guy, mainly in a lot of people's eyes because he's winning. And so now there's some people that are like, oh, maybe he's talking too much and it's the offseason now. The winning's not happening right now. it's the off season, so he literally can't win on the field right now. And so now people are like, whoa, maybe hold up, maybe you need to slow down, slow your roll there. And so I mean, and a lot of that's from like other teams. Like there's specifically a Titans podcast, I think like Titans Coliseum or something like that was like, oh, I can't wait to see CJ Stroud sophomore slump. And I'm like, okay, like I get it, you don't like the guy, but that comes across as that's like anything I say about Will Levis, regardless of how rooted in reality it is just probably going to come across as bias. So, but I have a lot more reason to talk trash about Will Levis considering what he's put on the field than anyone has to talk about CJ Stroud. But I mean, I don't know. Is there some part of you, like as a competitor, as someone who has played sports, that feels like this, like, look at the team around it? I'll make a comparison here. It's been brewing in the back of my mind for a minute at the NFL level. We watched the Eagles. I want to say it was 2009, maybe. I might be off on that number, but they added Vince Young as backup quarterback. They signed Nnamdi Asomugha, who I really wanted the Texans to sign. Thank God they didn't sign him. And they coined it. They called it the Dream Team. They're like, this team's going deep, and they talked the talk in the offseason, and then the season hit and it did not pan out on the field. Do you think, just based off of your experience as a person, that there's any reason to believe that maybe it is like slow your roll, or are you still like, I mean, like you said, we're in a social media age. There's always gonna be a camera in front of you. Maybe we're just catching it more because of that. I don't know.
I really feel like when you look at the way people are coming at CJ Stroud, and it's not like he's, screaming it from the top of the Eiffel Tower just to do it. You know what I mean? He's literally being engaged on somebody else's podcast or show or whatever, whether it's Pivot or I can't remember what the one is that just recently came out. I mean,
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it's called.
I know. But I feel like this is not him seeking the attention, more people seeking him. And I don't know what you want a guy to say that is a competitor. I don't know anybody that's going to tell you, well, we don't know. And, if they talk like that, they'll be like, well, you ain't about winning. If you got in front of Patrick Mahomes, he'd probably say the same thing. If you got in front of Travis Kelce, he'd probably say the same thing. If you get in front of Lamar Jackson right now, what do you think he's saying? I mean, I don't understand the backlash, especially from the teams like you spoke to, the Tennessee Titans. They won. Like, you should be silent. Like, look, look, we got to beat him before I can talk. Like, I can't even approach him. He cooked us. I shouldn't even be talking. When we talk about the linebackers for the Colts, and they're kind of chirping. That's
what I wanted to talk about too. Yeah.
I'm like, CJ said it. CJ came out and said it. He's like, look, because they share the same agent. He was like, why didn't you do something when you were mad? Like, we got a thing. Like, you had all these opportunities to make plays. You didn't make plays. So now I'm allowed to talk. You know what I mean? If it was the other way around, I guarantee you that podcast would sound totally different the other way. And I think CJ, being the gracious dude, would be like, yo, I got nothing. Instead of going, nah, he can't be talking like that. Why?
I mean, and that speaks to, I think that some people are trying to make a point that's not there, which is that I can agree with this, right? True greatness doesn't need to say that it's great. True greatness doesn't need to go out and seek that conflict to put attention on itself. Greatness is great. The problem with that argument is that CJ Stroud is not going out and seeking that. CJ Stroud's played great this season. He had probably the best rookie season a quarterback has ever had ever. And with that, everyone wants to come at him because they see greatness and they want to attack that because they don't like seeing it when it's not them. They're not seeing a mirror, they're seeing someone else, and they don't like that, right? So when CJ goes on these podcasts, people are testing him and challenging him. And when you constantly have the camera in your face, what do you want CJ to do? Like, he literally said it in his press conference before the Steelers game. They said they want us to like roll over, they want us to submit, and that's not us. They've got to play us too. That's that's CJ's mentality, is dog, right? So when he steps in front of people and they test him like that, what are they, like I said, he's literally the same guy who on the field Alex Singleton in the Denver Broncos game comes at him. He stands his ground, literally just like, I'm not gonna let you come up to me in my house. Come on. So with that mentality, people are gonna be frustrated when you come at them that way. But I would be frustrated if CJ Stroud got these questions and said, "Oh no, it's okay. It was honestly just, I was just lucky to be able to play." And if CJ Stroud referenced luck after all this talk about his faith, I'd be like, dude, like you know why you're here. You have a higher power you answer to, my guy. It's not luck at all. It's not circumstance. You are great. And that is something that you don't need to like downplay. Right. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that people are maybe making too much of it. And I think it's a narrative where they're flipping the script and making it seem like CJ and the Texans are talking themselves up too much just because they don't like that they have reason to. And it's not coming from them. They're not going, like you said, CJ didn't like start his own podcast and sit down in a room with Tank and just talk about, look how great we are. We're just the greatest team ever. They keep getting asked that. Right. So like, I don't know, man. I can see it. I can see why that argument's happening, but I don't agree with it. So, yeah, I don't know, man. What else is there to say? I don't know. Like, I don't have anything else to say on that.
For me, I just think it's so interesting that certain players, certain teams, they're just, hey, those are great players. Those are great teams. They are expected to be great. And when you talk about them being great, it's cool. Every year is the year for the Dallas Cowboys. Every year is the year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Every year, Aaron Rodgers could go to the Super Bowl and no one complains. Yeah, they chirp back and forth, but no one complains. It's like, yeah, it could happen. But CJ comes out and goes, man, we feel like we're good. We could do some things. And people are saying you're talking too much. Like, I don't understand. Like, I think he should be totally allowed to say, I think we got a great team. I think we got a great shot. We did some great things last year. I think we can do more. We had some injuries. Like, he's speaking to all the facts. And I think year 2, I can be better than year 1. I think I've got 5 number 1s. Like, he's talking about things that aren't like, well, maybe. No, I mean, you look at it on paper, there's a lot of people that are going to be drafting a lot of Texans early in their fantasy drafts. And it's not because they're not good players.
Exactly. I mean, I watched in our Texans Dynasty League, I watched Tank Dell come off I watched CJ Stroud go number 1 overall, which if you're there, the Ravens things, can't say I agree with that decision. I love CJ Stroud, but I can't say that I would have taken him that early. And then you watched, it was Tank Dell was next, and then Nico Collins went at the end of the second, the same guy that drafted CJ Stroud. That it sounds like something I would like when I was growing up, when I first got into fantasy football. Like, I didn't know anything about it. And one of my friends was like, I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, Matt Schaub's really good. So I'll probably grab him. And then I'll grab Andre Johnson and Arian Foster, and I'll build like the best team. And they're like, what are you going to do on the bye week? And I'm like, I don't know, lose. And they were like, no, you have to. So that's the kind of draft that I feel like our number 1 overall pick is having. It's just like, dude, you have to pick players that aren't on the Texans. I think he's gotten away from that as the draft has gone on. But Tom's been holding the draft hostage. It's almost like he works for a living or something.
I don't know how y'all do it, because for those of y'all that don't know about this draft that we have going on, there's 12 teams and there's 8 hours between each pick. So that, is supposed to accommodate, life. Man, you got 11 dudes that are like, hey, hurry up and pick. And it's like, don't y'all have jobs?
This pay sucks.
Don't y'all
That's
sleep?
Texans commenter.
Yeah.
This pay sucks.
They wanted to draft like 4 drafts in like 2 days or something like that. I'm like, whoa, pump your brakes.
One minute. I'm going to look up what Texans commenter drafted. Just so he was rushing Tom. He was literally like, just like, why does the pay?
Are you playing Counter-Strike? What are you doing?
What are you playing? Were you playing Counter-Strike? Just so Tom could pick Quentin Johnston, which is, in my eyes, not a great pick, right? But I mean, you got to take what you can, right? I took Jared Goff right after, because Tom and I are at the bottom of this draft, to show that there's no bias, because I did the draw and I hated every single way. I almost wish I would have had your pick now that we're reversing the order for the rookie draft. But and then Texans commenter is in the chat like, this pace sucks. Tom, what are you doing playing? Get out here and pick, just so he could go out there and pick Bryce Young. Just so you can pick Bryce Young. I'm like, you're rushing him so you can pick Bryce Young? Okay, cool.
He was gonna be there anyway. He was
gonna be there anyways. I didn't think anyone was eyeing him. I mean, who was there? There was another quarterback that was right there. Trevor Lawrence was right there. And as much as I don't like Trevor Lawrence, I mean, if I'm picking between the two of them, I'm probably going Trevor Lawrence. I don't know.
Wow.
We got someone in the chat talking about Dalton Schultz. Would you rank Dalton Schultz? Where would you rank Dalton Schultz among NFL tight ends? Love your page, by the way. Thanks, Ian. Thanks for the love. I'll let you take that one, Tom. You can go first.
I really think he's a top 10 tight end in the league because of the offense that he plays on. I think if he played anywhere else, he probably doesn't rank as high. I just feel like when you look at the opportunity that he will have in a high-powered offense versus, there's guys like McBride in Arizona, I think is really good, but I don't know what that offense is going to look like. You know what I mean? I think he's still top 10 also, but I just wonder. So for me, I think Dalton Schultz is a very good tight end. He's obviously a pass catcher first and not a blocker, is all the Texans fans will tell you. So his stats are going to look better as far as like if you're playing fantasy. But I mean, yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't know where he would be. He'd probably be at the bottom, like 9 or 10. But tight end's such a weird position, right? There's like
it is
4
100%.
Elite ones and a bunch of good ones. And then some bad ones.
We're looking at like what Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Greg Kittle? It's George Kittle.
George Kittle.
Yeah. George Kittle. I always get that mixed up for some unknown reason. TJ Hawkinson. You could probably throw Laporta in there and Mark Andrews.
That's it.
And you're like, those are your like guys. And then there's like a chasm. There's like a massive gap. And then the next set of tight ends that you would rank. A-Rod saying traitor. Yeah, I bet you're mad. I'd be mad too if I got rid of Dalton Schultz for Jake Ferguson. But anyways,
I drafted Ferguson. I think he's going to be great, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. You're obligated to say that because you took a risk and drafted him in your dynasty league that you're paying a lot of money to be in. But I would say I agree with you. I think that Dalton Schultz is in that next wave, those next 5 tight ends. And I'd say he's towards the back of it. Off the top of my head, I don't have the exact order, but I know that that's about where I'd put him just based off my understanding of like the tight end position in the NFL as it works. And there's actually a couple rookies like Brock Bowers could be a guy who could be ahead of Dalton Schultz if it works out for him. But with that, and Farmer Gronk, we're not even talking about once Cade Stover gets going. Then we'll have 2 top 10 tight ends.
I can't do that right now. Like, I think he has all the skill set to be better than Dalton. I just feel like Dalton's going to be tight end number 1 for the Texans. And when you list the top 10 offenses in football, I feel like the Texans are in the top 10 in offenses in football. Like Kyle Pitts, for example. Kyle Pitts had all the shine and accolades coming out of college, and they didn't use him. So,
well, he had a really great rookie season, but then they just decided, oh, that was really cool. Maybe we're not going to use you ever again. And then we'll draft Bijan Robinson and we'll do the same thing.
But I mean, I think he could be better. He could be top 10, but they got to use him.
They do. On that note, a little bit of a short episode, but my wife has something coming up and I don't want her to miss that. So, but yeah, there's also really, like I said, it's kind of that dead zone in the off season. We could go on, and we'll have plenty of more Wednesdays to talk about Texans football. But thank you for tuning in. As always, I have been James Roy. You can find me at James Roy NFL or at M1 Texans Fan. Really depends on what for. I'm going to give that a look.
He's making 4 more Instagrams, guys. Don't worry.
Another 30 Instagrams before Tom takes his next pick in the dynasty draft.
Am I on the clock?
No, you're not. It's Levi, and then Tyler's in the chat. At least he was, and he's sitting there. He's online on Sleeper right now, waiting to make the pick after. And that's why I always look at the top, and I'm looking at the top of this screen, and I'm like, who's online? And so I look, and Tom's never online. And then I wait, and then he goes and he takes both receivers that I'm looking at for my next pick. So I have to go in a totally different direction.
I think I'm having a great draft. I'm sorry.
I mean, sure. You're probably going into ChatGPT. You're like, what is a good dynasty draft in the 2023 or 2024 NFL season?
You act like I've never done this before. Like I'm like a rookie.
No, you have a lot more experience than me. You're if experience is what we're going based off of, you have tons more than me. I cannot overemphasize how much more experience you have than me.
All the wisdom, baby, all of it.
All the wisdom. But Tom only has one Instagram, and it is TCTom1. It is not private anymore. You can follow it whenever you want.
Come on
and
down.
He is at Third Coast Tom on Twitter. And so if you want to follow him on there, you can. And then yeah, we're doing this show. If you're looking for a Texans podcast, this is it. If you are late to this and you want to watch it again, you can go on the YouTube, or you can listen to it on the way to work tomorrow. You can go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We appreciate any feedback or reviews. If you leave us like a 5-star review or whatever you got on those forums, it really does help us out. And yeah, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I'm a Fanatics affiliate. And right now I'm using that money to do jersey giveaways, and we're over halfway there. So if you're looking at buying any Texans, Astros, Rockets, even your Cowboys gear, A-Rod, if you use the link in my bio and you buy something, a percentage of that goes into an account, which will then be used to do some jersey giveaways on Instagram and Twitter. So make sure you're following. And with that, I believe that's all we have. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, as always, stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans.